This is simply, all it is just the practice of using your hand to sense energy and just using your hand to see if you can feel any energy. That's all it is. And so it's a fancy word for just using your hand to see if you can feel anything. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can test this and work with this. Number one, typically we have a dominant hand for sensing energy, and this hand may or may not be our dominant hand. There are some teachers who say it's your non-dominant hand, use your non-dominant hand because you'll be able to sense more easily. There are other teachers who say it could be either. And I say, sure, it could be either, it could be both, it could change, and that's okay. But what that means is that you can work with this throughout the whole of your practice for the rest of your practice. And Byosen scanning is just this idea of taking our hand and really just kind of hovering it over an area and seeing if we feel anything. Now, here are some ways to kind of get your hands to a point where you can start to sense it. Number one, the energy ball is going to help with that. Number two, you can move your hand or your whole body into different kind of temperature environments and just kind of like take different temperatures and then see if you can sense anything. If you, for instance, go and stick your hand in a refrigerator and leave your hand in the fridge for a little bit, and then do some Byosen scanning and scan someone with your hand and see if you detect any differences with a cold hand. Then maybe stick your hand in somewhere warm. I don't know, pet your dog and get your hand all warmed up. And then do your Byosen scanning, whether on yourself, it is something you can do on yourself, or on someone else, and see if you detect any differences. And so just, putting your hands in different kinds of temperatures to see if you sense anything can be a fun practice and a fun exercise. Another thing that you can do, and this is actually a more traditional kind of practice, is that if you've got someone in front of you and you take your energy ball and you really kind of move your hands up from the body and like in a higher level sense and then bring them down, the point at which you start to feel some resistance, stop there and just sit in that energy and feel it, just like with the energy ball. Sit in that energy and feel it and just sense it and sense that boundary. And then once you hit that boundary, start moving your hand around and just seeing if you can see or feel any differences, any different types of sensations, any experiences that might arise. And that's all. And doing so without judgment is really important, because what will creep in is that sense of, I don't feel anything, I'm not doing this right. Or I felt something hot when I did it before, but I'm not feeling anything now. So what did I do differently before that I'm not doing right now? So the real trick here is to release that judgment of any sensations that you may or may not feel, and to just go with the flow on it. Byosen scanning is something that is really helpful. Now, for me personally, when I practice self-Reiki, I don't feel anything. But at this point on my Reiki journey, I practice self-Reiki with my hands directly on my body. Previously, as in a few years ago, I used to practice self-Reiki with my hands off of my body. And so I can sense more easily the energy when the hands are raised. When I have in-person sessions, I don't do hands-on Reiki. So I'm there with the person, but I'm not actually physically touching them. I might be called at some points to place a hand on a particular part of someone's body, but by and large, 95% of the time, my hands are hovering about that far off of their body. And I do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just have a blanket hands-off policy for my in-person Reiki sessions because I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable. And most of my clients are female, so I want to make sure that they are comfortable. So I make sure to just, it's a policy that I have. I just don't, unless I'm really called and I have the person's permission beforehand, I don't actually put my hands on their skin. Another reason, though, is that I actually sense the energy better when my hand is above the skin and above their physical body by a few inches. And so that's where I sense the energy best. But you'll be able to feel that out as your practice expands and grows. And so just know that that indeed may change as well. And that's all okay. But with Byosen scanning, as you bring your hands up and down, that level at which you feel that resistance can and will change. And so just the idea behind Byosen scanning is that when you bring your hand down and you feel that resistance, that's the place at which you should be doing the scan and seeing what you feel, if anything. And that's the place at which you should be focusing your hands for the hand positions in the sending of the Reiki.